Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Diabetes Digital podcast. Today, we are going to be answering a listener question about skipping breakfast, fasting in the morning. I am Wendy. I'm the co-founder of Diabetes Digital. And this is something that we see pretty often where people think that skipping breakfast is a good idea, that it helps with blood sugar. And so let's get right into it. Welcome to the Diabetes Digital Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Jess, and we're best friends, registered dietitians, and diabetes educators.
Through our telehealth platform, diabetesdigital.co, we offer accessible and personalized virtual nutrition counseling for people with diabetes and prediabetes.
Visit diabetesdigital.co, that's C-O, to book your first appointment. We accept insurance and offer affordable self-pay options. Now, let's get into today's episode.
It's confusing because we always hear breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But then also now we are hearing more about intermittent fasting and that being the healthiest way to eat. So you might be wondering, okay, what should I do? And that is what we're going to help you understand. Fasting in the morning affects different people differently. Some people, they feel great delaying eating. They have no issues with it. While other people, they get shaky, they're irritable, they have huge dips in their blood sugar. Especially if you are taking medication. Like some medications are going to require food in the morning, so that might be a huge factor. But also some people naturally, they just need something in the morning. They feel better that way. Whereas for others, they're okay delaying it a few hours and it doesn't negatively impact them. So I think the first step is tuning into what feels best for you, not what the next influencer is saying, not what intermittent fasting is promoting, but what do you actually thrive doing? Do you do well having something in the morning, or do you feel better waiting a few hours before eating? And I will say that breakfast doesn't have to be an elaborate thing. It doesn't have to be a platter of eggs, bacon, toast. It could be something pretty light as well, depending on, what your appetite is, what you can stomach during the earlier part of the day. And breakfast looks different around the world. Some people might have arepas, they might have tamales, they might do the eggs, but they might also do oatmeal. They might just have some toast with coffee in the morning. So it doesn't have to be what we've been programmed to think that breakfast is. It's important to incorporate the foods that you like, but also there is a way to do it in a way that's more balanced, and that'll help to stabilize your sugars in the morning. I don't recommend going too long without eating after waking up, because what happens is that you might have larger fluctuations with your blood sugar. If you're insulin sensitive, this might affect you even more. And so having a balanced breakfast, it can help to stabilize those blood sugars so you're not getting those spikes as often. I will say though, some people have great outcomes with their glucose when they do delay breakfast. So track your patterns. If you are using a CGM or you're doing any kind of glucose tracking, it's good to see what those patterns are during the day and see like, okay, how is this affecting me? And what is best for my health and my energy levels. Some signs that skipping breakfast might not be working for you are if you feel ravenous by the afternoon because you haven't ate all day. That's a sign that you probably should have had something earlier in the day. If you're feeling out of control at night, like you're just so hungry, you're like, oh my God, it's like you are not satisfied. No matter what you eat, you're like, it almost feels like there's a hole in your stomach. It might be because you undernourished during the day. If you're grazing often, if you're like, oh, I'll just have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you're doing that throughout the day, that might also be a sign that you are under fueling during the earlier part of the day. You might also be feeling like irritable, shaky, lightheaded. Those are also signs that your blood sugar is going a bit too low. If you're restricting during the day, but then you're overdoing it during the later part of the day, then that might be pointing to like a binging or really a restricting and binging cycle. So, if any of those signs are relatable, then I would encourage you to experiment with incorporating something during the earlier part of the day and to see how you feel. And again, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It could be fruit with yogurt. It could be some toast with peanut butter, a couple boiled eggs, even one boiled egg with like a piece of fruit. Those are all good options that aren't overwhelming on the stomach. Smoothies are also a really good option if you're like, okay, I do not want to chew in the morning. I just want something that is very gentle on my stomach. You can blend some yogurt with some fruit, and it could be as simple as that. You can, of course, add the powders, the protein, and all the things, but you could just keep it really simple and have some yogurt with fruit and add in some milk in there just to thin it out. And that could be something that you have in the morning as well. So when you're figuring out what this is going to look like for you, consider, okay, am I actually not hungry? Is this years and years of just not eating in the morning? Because that makes a big impact too. Like if you are just not used to having breakfast, because that has been the case for years and years, then those hunger cues are going to be muted and you kind of have to develop them. And that's where I encourage, especially if you're like, okay, I'm seeing a benefit with your numbers when you are incorporating something during the early part of the day, then that's where you would want to start small and incorporate those more simple foods so that you are kind of training your body to redevelop those hunger cues. And it does take some time and you might not fully develop them, and that's okay. But if it's helping to stabilize your numbers, then see if you can like slowly incorporate some of the more simple combinations that I mentioned earlier. Because hunger can be blunted by habit. It's not always a sign of your true needs. Oftentimes with intuitive eating, we hear, oh, you got to listen to your hunger cues. But sometimes those hunger cues are so off if you have been dieting for a really long time, or if you've just been ignoring hunger cues for a really long time, or if you've done it out of habit or survival, right? Like that's another thing. If you're like, okay, I have to be out of the house by 7 a.m. to get to school or to get to work, I don't have a chance to actually like prepare a breakfast because I'm always on the go, or whatever other situation it might be. I've worked with so many different people that have so many different scenarios. Like they work in construction, they work in healthcare, like they don't necessarily have the option of like having the time to have a breakfast, or they work off hours too, and that completely throws off their hunger and fullness cues. That's another thing that you want to keep in mind because you might not have those cues there. You might have to like really develop them by incorporating some of these routines. So back to the original question, is skipping breakfast a good idea? I would say it depends. Generally, I do recommend that people have something during the earlier part of the day, especially if you have insulin resistance, because it tends to help stabilize your numbers. But everyone is different. So make sure that you look at your numbers, make sure you pay attention to how you're feeling. And remember that if you do decide that it's probably a good idea to try incorporating some food in the morning, you can experiment with different things. It doesn't have to be an elaborate breakfast. You can experiment with foods that are a little more simple, that are easier to digest, and see how that works for you. So I hope this was helpful, and I will catch you later. Bye. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're interested in nutrition counseling with one of our expert dietitians to help improve your prediabetes or diabetes, visit us at diabetesdigital.co.
Also, if you found our conversation helpful, do us a favor and rate and review this podcast on iTunes, plus share with someone who might find this helpful. You can also connect with us on Instagram at diabetesdigital.co.
And tune in every Wednesday for practical, inclusive, and culturally humble diabetes insights. We'll catch you later. Bye.